Hey, what's up you guys, Mr. Awesome here and welcome to another video. If you guys have been paying attention to Nintendo news lately, you may have noticed that the Nintendo Switch has been in the headlines, with it being in the middle of its life cycle and yada yada yada. So I made this video today in order to talk about that because people don't believe that the Nintendo Switch can make it to 10 years, and actually it definitely can. So drop a like and subscribe for future Nintendo Switch content because we're about to go all in into this potential discussion I'm about to have with you guys in the comment section. Alright, so the Nintendo Switch launched in March 2017, and it saved Nintendo from failure because at least if you're a Nintendo fan, you would know the Wii U was not the success Nintendo expected it to be. So the Nintendo Switch was released. It combined both the handheld and home console markets into one. And ever since then, it's been 5 years. Well, next month makes 5 years. And it's crazy because we've gotten some serious gems on this little tablet console we have. But recently, Nintendo President Furukawa stated that the Nintendo Switch is in the middle of its life cycle, which many people find baffling. Many people can't believe the Nintendo Switch is going to last another 5 years. But it's crazy because if you think about it, the Switch can definitely last 5 more years. It's not going to be a strong 5 years. If anything, we might get like 2 more strong years and that's about it. But I definitely believe the Nintendo Switch has 5 more years left in its tank. In the early days of the Switch, Nintendo aimed for the console to last longer than your typical 5 to 6 year console life cycle, which is pretty much what consoles last. Like the Wii went from 2006 up until 2012 if I'm not mistaken, replaced by the Wii U, and then the Wii U went from 2012 to 2017, making it 5 years, and the Switch has gone above and beyond that. This year, as I said, is the 5th year, and there's no end in sight. So can the Nintendo Switch last 10 years in the market? Yeah, I believe it can, and there's multiple reasons as to why. For starters, the sales numbers. Nintendo Switch has been crushing it lately with sales. Animal Crossing and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and even Breath of the Wild have been system sellers for the console. And who's to say that Arceus, a game that just came out, won't be selling systems as well? Dude, the Nintendo Switch passed the Wii in terms of sales, and it just recently passed the PlayStation 1 as well. If anything, I'm pretty sure the Nintendo Switch might come very close to PlayStation 2 sales. If anything, it might just surpass it, but only time can tell with that one. I've noticed with the Nintendo Switch, since the very beginning, that Nintendo's treating this console like a handheld versus a home console. And if you think about it, the Switch is more of a handheld that so happens to connect to your TV. A very powerful handheld at that. Not so much anymore with the release of the Steam Deck and stuff, but that's a discussion for another video. I wanted to look at the lifespan of past Nintendo handhelds just to give you guys a nice comparison. The DS went from 2004 to about 2012. The 3DS went from 2011 to recently in 2021. And both these consoles were almost, if not 10 years old, out in the market. So if the 3DS can last 10 years, I'm 100% sure the Nintendo Switch can last 10 years. We had some good games coming out for the Nintendo 3DS at the end of its life cycle. Not so much in 2021 or 2020, but in 2019 we did. Those last 2 remaining years were just, like filler years. Just here, we made these games, just buy them. Well, people were still buying Nintendo 3DSs till the very end. If you look at the entire Game Boy line, this went past the 10 years from 1989 to 2003. Granted, there was Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance, but the Game Boy brand lasted as long as it did because there was always games, and also because of its revisions. Speaking of revisions, looking at these past consoles tells me something. We are in line to get more Nintendo Switch revisions. Now, I'm not no prognosticator or some predictions person. I'm just going based off history and based on what I think. We've gotten 3 revisions thus far in the past 5 years, making that the Nintendo Switch Lite, the Nintendo Switch version 2, the unhackable Nintendo Switch, quote unquote, and the Switch OLED that recently just came out. Who's to say that Nintendo won't release more revisions like a Nintendo Switch Lite OLED, just because, that would be a great push to push more Nintendo Switches. And also, we can't forget about like bundles and pack-in games, holiday games, kind of like how we've gotten like a Smash branded Switch or a Pokemon themed Switch like we have in the past. There's so much revisions and console releases Nintendo can do to push Nintendo Switch, one, to hit its sales numbers, and two, to just live a little bit longer. But obviously games is what determines that. This year alone we've gotten Arceus, we're gonna get Kirby, we're getting Breath of the Wild 2. If you look at third party, we're getting a whole bunch of games like Chocobo, Sonic Frontiers, and many more announcements from Nintendo and or third parties that we don't even know about yet. And who's to say E3, if there's an E3 this year, there won't be an announcement of future games. We still got Metroid Prime 4 in the pipeline, a potential Mario Kart 10, a sequel to Super Mario Odyssey, or another 3D Mario, or hell, even a 2D Mario. Like, there's games still being developed for the system that we don't know about. Who's to say Nintendo won't keep the Switch brand alive with another revision, like a more beefier Switch? Think of, you know, and I kind of hate to bring it up, but think of like a Nintendo Switch Pro or a Nintendo Switch Advanced, or dare I say a new Nintendo Switch, just for the console to stay afloat longer. Especially since Nintendo Switch is still going up against consoles like the PS5 and the Xbox Series. Nintendo might need new hardware just to compete with other competitors, which, let's be real, Nintendo says, hey, we don't compete with other people, we just compete with ourselves. But Nintendo really does compete with other people because they're releasing the same games. For example, look at Guardians of the Galaxy. It's a game that is on Xbox, PlayStation, and PC. But guess what? It's also on Switch. So I'm pretty sure Nintendo wants to get these third-party developers on board. And with things like cloud gaming, we kind of don't need new hardware right now. For now, cloud gaming, I guess, will do the job done. But yeah, cloud gaming is going to help the Nintendo Switch stay alive until it gets that more beefier revision. Cloud gaming could be a hit or miss, but I'm sure Nintendo realizes, and this is something Nintendo can take advantage and improve on as time goes on. All in all, with everything I just said, Nintendo Switch can last up until 2027. It's 5 years from now. But if I'm being realistic, we are most likely gonna hear rumors of a new Nintendo console come next year around 2023, because that's how console rumors are. They usually start 2 years beforehand, and then we get it the following year. I'm pretty sure there's gonna be a new console by 2025, the latest. It just makes sense looking at past history. And that doesn't mean if the new console comes out, the Nintendo Switch dies right then and there. No, not by any means. If you look at Nintendo 3DS, Nintendo pulled the 3DS off shelves in 2021, and the console technically started losing support in 2020 or 2019, depending, well, more 2019 than 2020 because of the pandemic. So it had 2 years of fluff just chilling, as I said before. That was 4 whole years after the Nintendo Switch came out. As I said, and I remind you, the Nintendo Switch came out 2017 and the 3DS fully died in 2021. 4 whole years. So who's to say the same thing can't happen to the Nintendo Switch when the time is right? Well, this is what I think. Let me know down below in the comment section what you guys think about the Nintendo Switch lasting 10 years. It's perfectly doable. I really do see it. Now, if I just had to summarize this whole video into like one sentence, I think the Switch is going to have an active 8 years of life, and then the other 2 are just going to be, yeah, it's there, but it's on its way out. Shoutouts to the members for putting that pizza on my pepperoni and supporting the channel monthly, and to the people who bought the Mr. Awesome merch. Much appreciate. And you for making it to the end of this video. As always, stay safe and stay golden.